Star Wars only, I don't know what the fuck your problem is.
Due to what's going on in the world today, it seems like everything's being put on hold. There's so many movies that have been delayed, films and TV shows that are actually in production that are being halted, and that's even affecting us Star Wars fans. We have shows like The Mandalorian Season 2, which thankfully wrapped up before this whole coronavirus epidemic broke out, and you even have the Clone Wars series, which is coming out every week right now, and it's pretty clear that the future of Star Wars is in Disney Plus. It's in the shows, it's in the streaming service that we have until the new movie comes out in 2022. Well, unfortunately, I guess for some Star Wars fans, there was a show called the Cassian Andor show, which isn't the unfortunate part. The unfortunate part is that it's being delayed again. Don't you love it? If you don't remember, a little less than a year ago, the show was actually in a lot of trouble. There was a lot of problems on the behind the scenes with the scripts, on what they were actually going to do, and it was actually just kind of done. Like, it, they stopped it in its tracks of not even getting into the pre-production stages. And then Tony Gilroy, the guy who saved Rogue One, came in again and saved the Cassian Andor show, and he is writing and directing the show at the moment, I believe. And recently they had to stop production on it because of the coronavirus. You're not supposed to have excess amount of people in one area. And this is coming from the special effects artist Neil Scanlon, I believe is how you say his name. He said this is the fan side, and he was working on the Cassian Andor show. He says, "I love the Star Wars world. I'm very, very happy with the Lucasfilm environment and Kathleen Kennedy. I was more than happy to get together and such. We eventually worked 4 or so weeks into it before, unfortunately, we were being like everywhere right now in response to this crisis, we had to lock it down for a while." And he goes on to talk a little bit about the show that doesn't surprise me. He talks about that Rogue One has a certain look to it. He says, "I think Rogue One has a very distinct look about it. A lot of Star Wars fans, I think, notice that slightly harder edge, and Tony Gilroy is now back with us and still writing and directing for the show as well, and so that's a good start to know where the color palette might lie." So that's good news. I mean, like I said earlier, Tony Gilroy is writing and directing. This show seems to be made for people who liked Rogue One, which I would argue out of all the new Star Wars films that have come out under Disney, Rogue One is the least controversial one. It's the most well received, I would argue, and it just seems like one of those things where it was made for the fans. It was a fan-pleasing film. This is one of the reasons I wasn't a huge fan of it, because it just seemed like something that's a fan film. Like it just was a lot of, you remember this, therefore you like that. But also, to be fair, that's kind of a good gauge on what to do with a spin-off show like this, with Cassian Andor, where fans really like that realistic Star Wars feel where, like the guy in this interview, Neil, said, it did have that kind of hard, gritty look to it that I think will be very nice to see in the show form. Kind of like we see in The Mandalorian, it's going to have that realistic, lived-in feel to the Star Wars universe. It is unfortunate that it's being delayed, though. Yeah, he said they were 4 weeks or so into it, so let's just give it a month. So they didn't really get too far into the show. It already was delayed a little bit, at least production-wise, from bringing Tony Gilroy in and kind of reworking the scripts and everything. Now the question's going to be, when's this show coming out? Initially, I would assume that it was going to come out in like January of 2021, because at the end of this year, I believe in October, we're getting The Mandalorian Season 2. Let's just say that runs for 2.5 months, maybe 3 months like the last one. You get 12 episodes, we're done, one every week or something, and it ends in December. Great. Well, now we have, let's say, a month break between December and January, and sometimes in January or even February, we get the Cassian Andor show. We're not getting that now. Now we're going to have another little kind of hiccup between shows. Disney's been doing really good, at least with the scheduling of the new Star Wars projects, of having, you have The Mandalorian in November, and then shortly after that, when that's over, you bring out Clone Wars Season 7, finish that story up, then you have The Mandalorian come back in October of this year. Shortly when that's over, you have Cassian Andor come out, and then when that's over, you bring out maybe Season 3 of The Mandalorian. That seems a little bit too soon for me, but possibly even the Kenobi show. Then you bring Mandalorian back, and then what do you know, the year's 2022, and we're getting ready for the next Star Wars film. It seemed like they had a schedule to keep audiences entertained, and this pandemic that's going on, epidemic, this crisis, I don't know what to call it really, other than a lot of shit, has caused a delay for a show that I think a lot of people weren't even looking forward to originally anyways. And so I really wonder what the future of the Cassian Andor show is going to be like. Is there even going to be a high enough demand for it at this point to truly go through with the project and see it to the finish line? I mean, is it worth the investment at this point? You only got a month into it. I'm pretty sure they filmed some seasons. Maybe let's just say they got an episode done. But is that enough to keep going with? And when are they going to continue production? When is this all going to get back? And is this actually going to delay the release date for the Cassian Andor show? I, of course, think it will. I think we're going to see it probably mid-summer next year at this point, depending on when they start up production again. I mean, how far into production did they actually get? I mean, do they have everything still kind of set up and just waiting there? Or do they take it all down and go home? A lot of confusion, because it's a confusing time we live in, a very interesting time we live in, and it's unfortunate that it actually is affecting the Cassian Andor show. Tell me your thoughts on them delaying the Cassian Andor show due to what's going on in the world right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm Star Wars Only. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you all next time, and may the Force be with you, always.